Jesus, I surrender all to Him I freely
The 20th of August, 1900, Volume 3. Jesus looks at the world from within Louisa. This morning my adorable Jesus was not coming. Then after much waiting, when my poor heart could take no more, he made himself seen within my interior and told me, "My daughter, do not want to afflict yourself because you do not see me, for I am inside of you, and from here, through you, I am looking at the world." Then he continued making himself seen every now and then, without telling me anything else. End of the reading.
The 20th of August, 1905, Volume 6. Grace assumes as many images around the soul for as many as are the divine perfections and virtues. This morning on coming, Blessed Jesus told me, "My daughter, if in all of her actions the soul does everything for God and to please God alone, grace enters into the soul from all sides, just as the light of the sun enters from all sides into a house when balconies, doors, and windows are open, and one enjoys all the fullness of the light. In the same way, the soul enjoys all the fullness of the divine light, and through the correspondence of the soul, this light keeps increasing always until she becomes all light. But if she does otherwise, the light enters through the cracks, and in the soul everything is darkness. My daughter, to one who gives me everything, I give everything. And since the soul is not capable of receiving my being altogether, grace assumes as many images around the soul for as many as are my perfections and virtues. So it assumes the image of beauty, and it communicates the light of beauty to the soul, the image of wisdom, and it communicates the light of wisdom, the image of goodness, and it communicates goodness, the image of sanctity, of justice, of fortitude, of power, of purity, and it communicates the light of sanctity, of justice, fortitude, power, and purity, and so with all the rest. So the soul is studded not with one sun, but with as many suns for as many as are my perfections. And these images are present around each soul. Only for those who are open and correspond to them, they are all in activity, working. For those souls who are not, they are as though asleep, and little or nothing can they use of their activity. End of the reading.
The 20th of August, 1912, Volume 11. Jesus is close to us, ready to do well together with us all that we are about to do, as soon as we ask him. Continuing, my always adorable Jesus, as he came, told me, "My daughter, how sorry I feel in seeing the soul huddled within herself and operating by herself, while I am close to her and look at her, seeing that many times she is unable to do well what she does. I wait for her to call me and say, 'I want to do this thing, but I am unable to do it. Come and do it with me, and I'll do everything well.' For example, I want to love. Come to love together with me. I want to pray. Come and pray together with me. I want to make this sacrifice. Come and give me your strength, for I feel weak." And so forth with everything else. Gladly and with greatest delight I would offer myself for everything. I am like the teacher who assigned an essay to his pupil, remaining close to him to see what his pupil does. Unable to do well, the pupil gets worried, worked up, upset, and he may even cry, but he doesn't say, "Master, teach me how I should do this." What is not the mortification of the teacher in feeling treated like a nothing by his student? Such is my condition. Then he added, "It is said, man proposes, God disposes. As soon as the soul proposes to do some good to be holy, I immediately dispose the things that are needed around her. Light, graces, knowledge of me, detachments, and if I do not achieve the purpose with these, then by means of mortifications I do not deny anything to that soul, in order to grant her what she had proposed. But oh, how many forcefully escape from this crafting that my love has woven around them. Few are those who do not give up and let me accomplish my work. End of the reading.
The 20th of August, 1913, Volume 11. One who lives in the divine will must have trust, simplicity, and disinterest in giving to all. Her life and her work are ended because the divine will consecrates her and transubstantiates her. While I was praying, I saw my always adorable Jesus within me and many souls around me who were saying, Lord, you have placed everything in this soul. And stretching their hands toward me, they said, since Jesus is in you and all his goods are with him, take them and give them to us. I remained confused, and blessed Jesus told me, my daughter, all possible goods are contained in my will, and it is necessary for the soul who lives in it to be in it with trust, operating as owner together with me. Creatures expect everything from this soul, and if they don't receive, they feel defrauded. But how can she give if she does not operate together with me in complete confidence? Therefore, trust in giving, simplicity in communicating herself to all, disinterest for herself to be able to live completely for me and for her neighbour are necessary for the soul who lives in my will. Such am I. Then he added, my daughter, it happens to one who does my will as to a grafted tree. The power of the graft has the virtue of destroying the life of the tree which receives the graft. Therefore, one can no longer see the fruits and the leaves of the first tree, but those of the graft. And if the first tree said to the graft, I want to keep at least a little branch so that I too will be able to give some fruits in order to make everybody know that I still exist, the graft would say, you have no more reason to exist after you submitted yourself to receive my graft. Life will be all mine. In the same way, the soul who does my will can say, my life is ended. I will no longer produce my works, my thoughts, my words, but the works, thoughts, and words of the one whose will is my life. Therefore, I say to the one who does my will, you are my life, my blood, my bones. The true, real, sacramental transformation takes place not by virtue of the words of the priest, but by virtue of my will. As soon as the soul decides to live in my volition, my will creates myself within the soul. And as my will flows in the will, works and steps of the soul, she undergoes as many of my creations. It happens just as to a pyx full of consecrated particles. There are as many Jesuses for as many particles, one for each particle. In the same way, by virtue of my will, the soul contains myself in her whole being as well as in each particle of it. One who does my will fulfills the true eternal communion, a communion with complete fruit. End of the reading.
The 20th of August, 1921, Volume 13. The acts done in the divine will are new heavens of love and of glory. Continuing in my state of privation and unspeakable bitterness, my lovable Jesus came for just a little, and surrounding me with his arms told me, my daughter, daughter of my will, I love so much one who lives in my will that I become her custodian, and I keep her sheltered in my own arms. I am jealous that not even one act be lost, because my own life is involved in each act. The fiat released the creation, and from the fiat, creation receives continuous preservation. If my fiat withdrew, it would turn into nothing, and if it remains intact without changing, it is because it has not moved from my fiat. However, I did not repeat another fiat, otherwise more new heavens, more new suns and stars would come out, one different from the other. On the other hand, in the soul who lives in my will, there is not just one fiat, but repeated fiats. Therefore, as the soul operates in my will, I repeat the fiat, and new heavens, new suns and stars are extended. And since the soul contains an intelligence, these heavens are new heavens of love, of glory, of light, of adoration, of knowledge, forming such a variety of beauty that I myself remain enraptured. The whole of heaven, the saints, the angels, cannot remove their gaze from her because, as they admire the variety of heavens which she contains, more new ones extend, one more beautiful than the other. They see the celestial fatherland copied in the soul who lives in my will, the multiplicity of new things which multiply to the infinite. How could I not keep this soul guarded and not be extremely jealous of her if just one act of hers is worth more than the creation itself? In fact, the heavens, the sun, are without intelligence, therefore they have no value in themselves. All the value is mine. On the other hand, since one who lives in my will contains an intelligence, there is her will that runs within mine, and the power of my fiat uses it as raw material in order to extend these new heavens. Therefore, as the soul operates in my will, she gives me the delight of forming new creations. Her acts are the manifestation of the life of my will, the prodigies of my volition, my repeated fiat. How could I not love this soul? End of the reading.
20th of August 1923, Volume 16. Living in the divine will is not an individual sanctity, but like the sun, it is for the universal good. It is the greatest miracle. So is the celestial Mama more than a silent sun, in order to be the queen of the sanctity of the saints and mother and bearer of the divine life to all. I was thinking to myself, my good Jesus says many marvelous things about his will and how there is no greater, higher, or holier thing than the soul whom he calls to live in his will. If it were so, who knows how many marvelous things I should be doing, how many amazing things also externally. On the contrary, there is nothing charming or striking. Rather, I feel the most abject and insignificant of all, who does nothing good, while the saints, how much good did they not do? Amazing things, miracles. Yet he says that the living in his will leaves all saints behind. Now, while these and other thoughts were passing through my mind, my Jesus moved in my interior and with his usual light told me, my daughter, when a sanctity is individual in time and space, it has more external prodigies in order to attract those individuals, places, and times to receive the grace and the good which the sanctity contains. On the other hand, the sanctity of living in my will is not an individual sanctity assigned to do good to certain places, to certain people, and to certain times. Rather, it is a sanctity which has to do good to all, in all times and in all places. It is a sanctity which remains eclipsed in the eternal sun of my will, which, invading all, is light without speech, fire without wood, without clamour, without smoke. But in spite of this, it does not cease to be the most majestic, the most beautiful, the most fecund. Its light is more pure, its heat more intense, and the true image of it is the sun which illuminates our horizon. It illuminates all, but without clamour. It is light but has no speech. It says nothing to anyone. The good it does, the seeds it fecundates, the life it gives to all plants, and how it purifies the polluted air with its heat and destroys all that can be noxious to all humanity. It is so silent that even though they have it with them, they pay no attention to it. But in spite of this, it does not cease to be majestic and beautiful, and to continue the good it does for all. And if the sun were missing, everyone would cry over it, since the greatest miracle of fecundity and preservation of all nature would be missing. The sanctity of living in my will is more than sun. A soul who is upright and fully ordered in my will is more than an army in battle. Her intelligence is ordered and bound to the internal intelligence. Her heartbeats, affections, desires are ordered with eternal bonds. Therefore, her thoughts, her will, and all her interior are armies of messengers which come from her and which fill heaven and earth. They are speaking voices. They are weapons which defend all, and first of all, their God. They bring good to all. They are the true celestial and divine militia, which the Supreme Majesty keeps all ordered within itself, always ready at all its commands. And then there is the example of my Mama, true sanctity of living in my will, with her interior all eclipsed in the eternal sun of the Supreme Volition. Having to be the queen of the sanctity of the saints and mother and bearer of my life to all, and therefore of all goods, she remained as though hidden in all, bringing good without making herself recognized. More than a silent sun, she brought light without speech, fire without clamor, good without exposing herself. There was no good which did not come from her. There was no miracle which was not unleashed from her. By living in my will, she lived hidden within all, and she was and is the origin of the goods of all. She was so enraptured in God, so fixed and ordered in the divine will, that all her interior swam in the sea of the eternal volition. She was aware of all the interior of all creatures, and she placed her own in order to reorder them before God. It was exactly the interior of man, more than the outside, to be in greater need of being redone and reordered. And so, having to do the major part, it seemed that she did the minor, while she was the origin of both external and interior good. Yet apparently it seemed that she did not do great or amazing works. More than sun, she went unobserved and hidden in the cloud of light of the divine will, so much so that the very saints gave of themselves, doing apparently more amazing things than my own Mama did. Yet, what are the greatest saints before my celestial Mama? They are just little stars compared to the great sun. And if they are illuminated, it is because of the sun. But even though she did not do amazing things, she did not cease to be also visibly majestic and beautiful, just barely flying over the earth, all intent on that eternal will which she charmed and enraptured with great love and violence in order to transport it from heaven to earth, and which the human family had so brutally exiled up on high. And with all her interior ordered in the divine will, she gave no time to time. Whether she thought, palpitated, breathed, and everything else she did, these were all charming bonds in order to draw the eternal word upon earth. And in fact, she won, and she performed the greatest miracle, which no one else can do. This is your task, my daughter, to charm me, to bind me so much with your interior, all reordered in the supreme volition, as to transport it from heaven to earth, that it may be known and have life on earth as it does in heaven. Of all the rest, you should not worry about. One who has to do the major part has no need to do the minor. On the contrary, the field is given to others so that they may do the minor part in order to give work to all. I know what is needed: time, place, and people. And when I have to make known my greatest works, also with external prodigies, you continue always your flight in my will, filling heaven and earth, charming me so much as to make me unable to resist performing the greatest miracle, that my will reign in the midst of creatures. End of the reading.
The 20th of August, 1933, Volume 32. How the Divine Majesty is inclined toward the creature when he sees her disposed to doing an act of his will. Difference there is between one who lives in the divine will, how she remains needed, K-N-E-A-D-E-D, needed, in the fiat. My poor mind continues to cross the sea of the fiat. It seems to me that I am always within, but embracing it all is not given to me. I am too little, incapable, and while I walk, oh, how much remains for me to walk and to comprehend. All eternity will not be sufficient to cross it completely. But while my mind was lost in its immensity, my beloved good Jesus, surprising me, told me, "My blessed daughter, certainly all eternity will not be enough for you to cross the immense sea of my volition, even less, therefore, the few hours of your life. It is enough for you to remain within us, in order to render yourself happy and be all attentive to taking the tiny drops that your little capacity can take, because you must know that so much is our contentment when we see our creature who remains within our sea of the fiat, and who wants to comprehend more and enclose in herself another of its knowledges, in order to be able to form one more act of life of our will, that our adorable Majesty lowers itself even into the depth of the creature, and touching her little intelligence with our creative hands, we render her capable, and with our power we form the space where she must enclose the new act of our will, because there is no greater act that more glorifies us and loves us than a completed act of our will in the creature. So much so that the heavens abase themselves, all creation lowers itself, and they adore my will completed in the little creature. She herself invades everything, and there is no point where she does not find herself. She calls everything, heaven and earth, to do honour to its acts, completed in the human littleness. So I continued to think about the divine will, and I thought to myself, but what difference is there between one who does the divine will and one who lives in it? And my lovable Jesus, all goodness, added, "My daughter, there is a great difference between the one and the other. One who lives in my divine will possesses its life and receives continuous life from God in order to conserve, nourish, and make this life of my will grow in the creature. Life she possesses and life she receives. On the other hand, one who does my divine will receives the effects of it, and between the life and the effects there is such distance that there is no comparison that holds up. Is there not a difference between a life and a work? Life palpitates, thinks, speaks, loves, walks, and repeats as many times as it wants what it possesses as life. On the other hand, work, being an effect of life, does not palpitate, does not think, does not speak, does not love, does not walk, nor is it capable of repeating itself. And it can happen that with time that work itself is consumed and is not found any more. How many works done, who knows how many renowned ones, do not exist any more. Instead, life is not consumed. And if the body is consumed through death, it is for a little while. But the soul does not die, nor can it be consumed, even if it wanted it to. See therefore what great difference there is between life and the effects that life can produce. The effects are produced according to time, to circumstances, to places. On the other hand, life is never interrupted. It always palpitates and has in its power being able to produce different effects according to the circumstances. Now one who lives in my will, possessing its life, has in her power, and always not at intervals, sanctity, grace, wisdom, goodness, everything. And it is life that she possesses, as much in the soul as in the body, in a way that all the littlest particles of her being contain the omnipotent fiat, and it flows more than blood in all the creature, so much so that if she palpitates fiat. If she thinks, the fiat is impressed in her thoughts. If she speaks, she hears my fiat flowing in her voice. And if she speaks of it, if she works, her works are kneaded with my fiat. And if she walks, her steps say fiat. It is life, my daughter, and as life she must feel it in all her being, nor can she do less than feel it. Not so for one who does my will. In order to feel it, she must invoke it, she must pray. But when does she invoke it? In the sorrowful circumstances of life, in the needs, when she sees herself pressed by enemies, almost like those who call the doctor when they are sick, but if they are well, the doctor is always a stranger for them. Therefore the perennial life of my divine volition does not exist in them, and so they are changeable in good, patience, prayer, light. They do not feel it as life in themselves, and so they do not feel the need of possessing it as their own property, nor do they love it with true love, because when acts are not continuous, one does not have dominion over them, nor have them in their own power, so love remains broken. Therefore the difference is great between life and the effects. Life makes one feel the need to live of divine will. Instead, the effects, no. If they have each other. If they do not have each other, they remain indifferent. So always wanting my will means that one possesses its life. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed day.
I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior.